If you find yourself repeatedly using the same components and assemblies, you know how tedious it can be to add the same constraints each and every time you use a particular part. With a small amount of upfront work, iMates can drastically reduce or even eliminate the amount of time it takes to constrain commonly used components. iMates are a method of predefining a specific constraint or set of constraints for a component. These constraints are then automatically added when you drag the component into an assembly. Take a look at this simple example. I have to add 4 screws to this cover. First, I'll add screws from the Content Center. When I place the screws, they come in aligned with the assembly origin, and they aren't constrained. I have a couple of options for constraining them. I can add an insert constraint. I can also use Alt-Drag, which lets me apply constraints by selecting geometry on the screw while I press the Alt key, and then dragging the screw to the hole in the cover. When I expand one of the screws in the browser, notice there is an iMates folder with 3 constraints. Since the fasteners came from Content Center, they have predefined iMates. I'll zoom in on the screw so we can see the iMates. The geometry selection for each iMate highlights when I click on it. The iMates help speed up the constraint process because I can click on the iMate glyph instead of selecting a circular edge of the screw. If I select the screw first so the iMate glyphs display, I can use the constraint command. Or Alt-Drag. This can be faster than manually adding constraints, but you still have to constrain each screw. There are some advantages if you also have iMates in the target component. I'll delete the screws and then I'll edit the cover so I can add the iMates. I'll switch to the Manager tab and click the iMate icon on the Author panel, which opens a simplified version of the constraint dialog. You can create assembly and motion constraints, but only one selection is available. I'll create Insert iMates at each hole. Now that I have iMates in the part, I can use iMates when I'm placing a component. I'll start Place from Content Center again, but this time, when I select the screw, I'll also check Use iMates. When I click OK, the screw is previewed at the first iMate on the cover. When I right-click, there are several iMate options. When I click on Next Assembly iMate, the fastener preview moves to the next hole. I want fasteners at all of the holes, so I'll right-click and select Place at all matching iMates, and the screws are placed at all of the holes. You can also use iMates when you place regular components. I'll click on Place, and then I'll click on the iMates button at the bottom of the Place dialog. Any component that has iMates will work like the fasteners did.